afternoon, everyone. Has it ever bothered you that young Africans on a yearly basis keep moving away from home? Some die in the desert, some die in the forest, some die at sea, all in an attempt to make their way to the West, where they believe that they are going to find a better life. It bothers me as well. My name is Jumangong. I'm a Pan-Africanist, an educator, and a title holder in my community, for where I encourage young people to stay at home or go out there, bring it back home so that we can grow together. This afternoon, I want to talk to us briefly on what I title Making It in Africa Without Necessarily Going to the West. Making it in Africa without necessarily going to the West. Again, I want to ask, how do you feel that people you grew up with, you studied with them in the same primary school, probably in the same secondary school, in the same universities, and out of a sudden, you hear that they die trying to find their way to Europe, where they believe there is going to be a better life for them? I want to think that as a Pan-Africanist, I believe we can make it here in Africa and build our economy and build our businesses and ensure that Africa becomes a better place where we can keep our young people and grow in a way that even the West will envy us and will want to come and be with us. To make this my arguments, I'm going to be advancing to us 3 points why I think that we can make it in Africa without necessarily displacing ourselves to the West, where most Africans have been brainwashed to think that there is a better life over there. The first point I want to advance is that for us to understand that we can make it here in Africa, the first point I want to advance is that some Africans have already made it here, giving us an example that we can look up to. If we look around Africa, I want to make first mention of Patrice Motsepe. Patrice Motsepe is a South African who also happens to be the CAF president presently. He is a big businessman. Before being CAF president, he has made it in the domain of mining. If we go to Kenya, we have James Mwangai, who is a banker and has established a banking system that cuts across Africa. And if we come back home to Nigeria, of course, we all know about our famous Dangote, who has made it on a global stage and is excelling. And he lives with us. He doesn't live in the West. His businesses are here. I want to stand on this to push forward my point that Africans can make it here without necessarily traveling to the West. I want to draw this quote according to a research carried out by Frank Swanika in 2018, who carried out a research on successful businesses in Africa, successful businessmen in Africa, and came to the conclusion that you don't need to leave Africa to make it. You can build from Africa and establish in Africa. That takes me to the second point I want to put across. My second point I want to put across to establish the fact that we can make it in Africa without necessarily displacing ourselves to the West is that Africans still have a lot of untapped potentials. There are still a lot of untapped potentials in Africa. What do I mean? The digital economy is booming in Africa. There is a lot of potentials for that. Mobile money, e-commerce, and all that you can think of. So many Africans are yet to get into it. And if you and I can educate ourselves and educate our comrades to understand that in Africa, there is still a lot that people can venture into without necessarily displacing themselves, we will be building an economy that can sustain. We have vast land. We have a lot of agricultural potentials. In fact, we have a growing population in Africa because the economy requires a market. And if we have a population that is growing, in fact, a research carried out by the African Development Bank in 2023 revealed that the African population will double by 2050. This makes us to understand that If you start investing now and you start projecting now, by the time we get to that moment when the African population is doubling, you have a very big market for whatever thing you are doing. You have a very big market for that. Also, in 2024, the World Bank did a research on the fastest growing countries in the world. And the findings of that research revealed that 6 amongst the 10 fastest growing countries in the world, 6 of them are found in Africa. I therefore put it to you that if we consistently build our economy and do our businesses in Africa with this growing population and the untapped potentials of Africa, we are going to make it without necessarily displacing ourselves to the West. My third point, thank you, sir. My third point, which I want to put across, is that there is a lot of untrue picture that has been painted on our minds about the West. What do I mean? They don't tell you about the deserts that they go through. They don't tell you about the fact that some people die on the way, and some still do not want to agree, still think that it's just stories made up to convince you to stay home. In fact, worst of it all, if you travel to the West, very educated, chances are high that you get to the West and you are unemployed. Even our medical doctors who train here, if they go to the West, they cannot practice medicine. Therefore, when they stay here, they are more useful to humanity than when they leave this place and go to the West. I want to end with these 2 quotes, anonymous quotes. The first one is this: the grass only looks greener in the West because Africans have stopped watering their own. The second quote I want to leave with you is, don't wait for the West to define your worth. Build where you are, and the world will come to you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. It's been wonderful talking to you. I remain Jumango.